Hello, everyone. I'm Sonia Thompson, Community Content Manager for Supply Side 365. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this Health Condition Corner with the Herbal Pharmacist, David Foreman. Welcome, David. It's always great to see you.
Good to be here. I just had a aha moment right when you started talking that I only met you for the first time at Supply Side East, I think it was. Wow.
What is
We've,
that?
we've
Just
accomplished
you?
we've accomplished a lot in those few months.
Well, for the next 29 minutes, David will be giving you all a pretty broad overview of nootropics. What is it? Tomato. If you have any questions for David, please paste them in the LinkedIn Live discussion thread. If we don't have time to answer your questions after the presentation, he will jump into the discussion thread afterwards and provide a response. And that's all I have, David, turning it over to you.
Sweet. Glad to be a part of this, as always. Just a quick reminder to everyone, maybe this is your first health condition corner. I think there's been maybe 8 or 9 of these with a wide array of topics, from weight management to joint health to stress, sleep, etc. So if you have actually missed any of these, they're always 30 minutes, so it's not going to destroy your day. If you need something to go to sleep at night, I would highly recommend you don't download these and listen to them then, because I tend to go a little bit wild and crazy. The only rules I have for my webinars is that I just ask you that if your ingredient didn't get mentioned in any of the things I was talking about today, don't email me cursing me out. I have had some really awesome things I've learned, though. There's been ingredients that I was unaware of, so I do encourage people to reach out. And if you think you've got something really cool that fits into my discussion today, I'm all about receiving the information. My contact will be at the last slide, or you can always message me through LinkedIn. And I want to thank my good friends in Spain for encouraging me to use the Super Dave image again today. It was a humbling yet fun experience to have them say, hey, you should use your Super Dave thing. So today's topics, and like Sonia said, is it nootropics. Personally, I live in Florida. I like the tropics, except this time of the year. I got stuck in Spain for another day or day and a half because of the tropics causing a hurricane where I live. But anyway, I like to say nootropics. Anyway, if you did pick your favorite search engine, I'm not going to promote Google necessarily, and put in smart drugs. That's what a lot of people consider nootropics are actually smart drugs. And the reality is they're a lot more than smart drugs. They actually can or should fall into 3 primary areas. And obviously I'm a punny guy, so I had to put no pun intended on primary areas of focus. Ha ha ha, come on now, everybody, let's laugh together. I know you guys on the West Coast, you're still getting your first cup of coffee in you, so I'll grant you a little leeway on this. But stress, sleep, and cognition is really what we're talking about. If you go back to smart drugs, you're thinking only cognition, but it goes way beyond that. So there's 6 qualities of what make a neurotropic. And these all apply to the mental wellness category. And I know if you've been paying attention to me over the last 3 years, I have given probably 30 different webinars on all sorts of topics relating around mental wellness. And this is sort of like the icing on the cake, the cherry on top of the whipped cream, whatever you want to say. So the 6 qualities are energy, cerebral blood flow, neuroprotection, regeneration, making waves, and neurotransmitters. And with this real quick, and I have a slide on each one of those, a little deeper dive, but real quick, why energy? Well, energy, the brain uses 20% of the body's energy, yet it's only 3% of the mass. Cerebral blood flow, the brain receives 15% of the total blood supply and oxygen. So you can see why those are kind of important. Neuroprotection, these are going to protect you from those irregular proteins in a condition I can't use because it's a disease. Inflammatory response, detoxification, and more. Regeneration, this involves repair or create new brain cells and stimulate something called neuroplasticity, which I'll cover in just a couple of minutes. Making brain waves or making waves, this has to do with your brain waves. I think a lot of times we forget that a lot of the things that we're formulating with, or we might want to formulate with, actually have specific impact on different areas of the brain and brain waves. And that can really go a long way as to whether or not your product's going to be successful or experiential. And last but not least, the quality would be having some sort of an effect on the neurotransmitters. And why? Because they are responsible for that whole communication process. So let's get into a little deeper dive on each one of these categories. And these will all make sense when it comes to towards the very end of this, when we're looking at snagging an ingredient from, hopefully not from the air like I just did, but snagging an ingredient that comes to you, in your email or on a search, when you can find out what it really does. If it has an effect on any one of those 6 categories, we can see why it may have a positive impact on cognition, stress, or sleep. So why energy? One is the upkeep. Without energy, you're not able to maintain and manage your brain function. It has to do with the functionality. It helps you avoid brain fog and fatigue. I was just talking before we went on air. I got up early this morning. I did like an hour and 15 minutes of like hardcore, cycling. Came home. I have had 0 calories whatsoever today, so hopefully my brain can last through this without it. But a lot of times, if you don't have that energy source, we get that brain fog or mental fatigue. And then what's needed? So we either need to support the mitochondria, which is the energy factory of each cell. They're the power plants, however you want to look at it. What's needed? We need to be able to transport key nutrients into the brain or into the brain cells so that your body can produce that energy. And last but not least, so we've got the support, we've got transport, and then obviously we need the nutrients to be transported. Next area, cerebral blood flow. Makes sense. If you don't have good blood flow to your hands get cold, right? You don't have good blood flow in your lower extremity, your feet get cold, or your feet may get tingly. So we need cerebral blood flow to, one, help get the supply of nutrients and oxygen. We talked about on the first slide there, where I was discussing that, 15% of the, blood supply and oxygen goes to the brain, yet the brain is only 3% of the mass of the body. But we also need to have that good blood flow to get the toxins out, because when your body produces energy, just like a factory does, you produce energy, you get exhaust along with it. That needs to be removed, or it leads to other health problems. And the goals here, one is to inhibit or neutralize free radical damage, that oxidative stress, oxidative damage, however you want to call it. We want to improve blood flow by perhaps relaxing the blood vessels, things like nitric oxide production. There's a couple of supplements that really fit well into that. And then last but not least, perhaps decrease the aggregation of cells, meaning the clumping together. And there's some really awesome, actually kind of cool. I was actually talking to somebody that I use a nattokinase product for cardiovascular health. And the reason I use it is it helps dissolve fibrin. It also has really cool studies on improving peripheral, it's tough for a guy that speaks to speak today, peripheral blood flow. And so decreasing the aggregation of cells can really help free up, get the nutrients in and the toxins back out. So if you have why do you want something neuroprotective? I think it's kind of half the word protective, right, is there. We want to protect those existing nerve cells, those neurons. So the goal here is to decrease oxidative stress. In other words, decrease free radical production, get those toxins the heck out. We want to decrease any inflammation. I joke when I go to conventions, come on, we all know how it is. Our industry might be into health, but a lot of us probably overconsume. But I like, one of my favorite comments is like, the morning after like a really good, industry event is I have cerebral inflammation. Ha ha ha. AKA perhaps a little bit dusty on the edges. And then last but not least, perhaps the goal here is to decrease those abnormal protein clusters that are forming here as well. Regeneration. Why do we want to regenerate? Well, we're always having some damage done, or so by regeneration, we're talking about, we want to make sure we're repairing, replacing damaged neurons. If we don't repair or replace those damaged neurons, we get decreased functionality. It's like the wiring in your house. Like if you have a couple of frayed or cut wires in your house, things just aren't going to function properly. Same thing with your computer. Same, like if your USB port's kind of iffy, it's got a few little damage spots on it, you may not be getting the connectivity that you're looking for. The goal here is one, stimulate neuroplasticity. This is the protection, repair, etc. of the brain, regeneration of bad cells, promotes the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, which plays a really important role in that neuroplasticity. And then again, we're going back. There's a little bit of redundancy throughout each one of these areas, but again, providing those nutritional raw materials to help the body rewire or repair itself. So one of the points, I guess is a good point right now, I sort of just said it, but you'll notice a little bit of overlap, decreased oxidative stress or oxidative damage or free radical damage, whatever you want to call it, or in this case, perhaps getting the proper nutrients into the body. There's some redundancy across all these categories, and that's why when you're looking at formulating for success down the road here, it's a good idea to understand what's the underlying mechanism of action, what nutritional effects is this compound having, etc. So brainwave support, I called it making waves. Why? Well, we can see if we can have an impact on the proper brainwaves, we can promote alertness, we can promote decreased stress, we can promote, so I put promote alertness, but in this case, we can promote alertness, like cognition stuff. We can promote relaxation for stress, or we can help promote relaxation and or sleep for sleep. So we can see there's low frequency brainwaves. These are, kind of what help make you tired, dream, etc. There's 3 different ones there: delta, theta, and alpha. You can see delta is that restorative, non-REM sleep. Ingredients like saffron, ingredients such as Mazanol is another one from ZMAs. These tend to help keep the body more in that restorative sleep. If you want to learn more about sleep and these areas of sleep and what category each ingredient fits into, I had a previous health condition corner on that topic, and it really lays it all out for you, which ingredient works for what brainwave. Theta is associated with REM sleep. So things I'll talk about later in my talk, like GABA, valerian, passion flower, they're going to drive you probably to be more in that REM sleep area. And then alpha promotes just that calm, restful alertness. So something like an L-theanine, a suntheanine would probably fall best into that category. And I'll talk about these later, so don't freak out that they're not on my slides right now. They are a little bit later. And then high frequency. This is really where we're going to get into this focus and concentration part. So we're talking about beta waves. This is that waking brain state. So if you're doing clinical studies and you see, oh my God, man, like this stuff really improved working memory or problem solving. Well, it's probably working on those beta waves within the brain. And then gamma. So with gamma, you get this intense level of concentration, almost like, to me, I'm glad I didn't speak the words I was thinking. Anyway, while my filter's working today, to all my friends that are watching, my filter just worked. But this is an intense level of concentration, processing, and learning. So if you've done clinical studies on your ingredient, like a Cogniva, which is sage, or something in those areas, that's probably why it's probably having more of an effect on gamma. And then the goal here is getting that nutritional support, getting the nutrients in the body that support those areas. And then one that's not a supplement, but I think as a natural health industry, we need to support across the board. And so when we're putting our promotional material, websites, et cetera, together, talking about increasing activities, these will, i.e. exercise, meditation, neurofeedback, et cetera, these all play an important role in supporting the brain and brain waves. So if you're having trouble sleeping, meditation, you get it. It kind of calms the brain down. If you're trying to, improve your cognition, maybe getting a little bit more exercise, like improves blood flow. You guys get the idea. Everybody that tunes into these things, you guys are all smart anyway. So neurotransmitter support, this is the last of my 6 areas. So why neurotransmitters? Let's describe the neurotransmitters that are playing a role here and what they do. So acetylcholine, this is responsible for memory, learning, attention, cognition. Dopamine is more of the mood and motivation, helping you to learn something new. So yeah, it can actually help kind of with the mood calming part. But at the same time helps you, is really important for helping when you're really trying to learn something new. Norepinephrine, this works more so with attention and focus. So if you're having kids that are really, or adults, I know a lot of you guys out there too, have a little tension issue. Sometimes the focusing on ingredients that either are nutrients that help promote the production of norepinephrine, or maybe keep it in the synaptic cleft, the nerve ending a little bit longer, etc. Epinephrine, its brother or sister, is that what gives you it's adrenaline, gives you that intense energy. Caffeine is probably what everybody thinks of when you think of that kind of energy is like a caffeine, but there's some really cool other ingredients available now in the market that do that aren't harmful to you. Serotonin is the one that kind of gives you that chill, relaxation, feeling of satisfaction. That's why we see it working. There's a patented saffron extract that actually is patented for weight loss, and there's patented ingredients that actually are patented for and that would be the satisfaction part. And in this case, there's like Afron patented for stress and mood. So you see the ideas here. And then GABA, this is responsible for sedation and relaxation. That's really going to be more of the sleepy time type of thing. Goal here, get those raw materials into the body, promote the production of those neurotransmitters, inhibit the reuptake, meaning the neurotransmitter gets into the little gap. We talked about joints a couple of weeks ago where we had the ball and the socket. Well, our nerves are kind of the same way. We have one nerve going into another, so to speak. And my balled up hand here, I hope everybody can see it, is the one that's going to communicate to the next nerve, and it's going to release one of those neurotransmitters, and it's going to hopefully get taken into the next nerve to communicate the signal to keep it going. So what we can do is we can find things that inhibit the reuptake, meaning this cell over here, my clenched fist, will actually bring what's left over that hasn't been taken up fast enough will get reabsorbed back into that nerve. Or we have things that actually inhibit the breakdown, because there's also enzymes that are secreted in there that will actually break those down so that those components can be reabsorbed into the nerve. So quick examples of ways to support neurotransmitters are nutritional things like phosphatidylcholine, cytidylcholine, which I have at the bottom, phosphatidylserine, tyrosine, the primary B vitamins of 6, 9, and 12, 5-HTP if you want to step back one step further. You can even use some tryptophan, and then magnesium, the mineral that we're probably all super freak deficient in. And I'm not, because I get my magnesium levels checked. An ingredient like saffron, I talked about, has an effect on, actually in this case, has an effect on, this is just one of the examples, by the way, has an effect on neurotransmitters. Sage actually has an effect on acetylcholinesterase inhibiting, which means it'll help inhibit the breakdown. Kind of cool, adaptogens. And then, so these are just some examples of ingredients you want to look for if you're looking at supporting neurotransmitters. So let's dive into, again, this is super freak basic. I have 30 minutes to crank this thing out. And so, we're not going to get overly ingredient heavy on these. What I tried to do is include ingredients that actually have clinical substantiation behind the topic, in this case of stress. I'll give you a quickie idea. So adaptogens, actually, probably the biggest one out there adaptogenic wise would be ashwagandha. There's a few patented clinically substantiated ingredients that fit into there. The two biggest ones I think on the market are KSM 66 and Sensoril. But I've got two probiotics I'm going to mention today. We've got the ProBio Brain and we've got Heal 9. I actually been working on a project for a very large client, helping them source ingredients. Solid science on, again, when we're talking about this microbiome thing, you're getting into a whole nother level of working, with the microbiome. And how is that perhaps helping stress? Perhaps it's just because of that gut-brain connection. Neurotransmitters made in the gut, maybe even digesting, absorbing the nutrients that are in your food so that the body can use those as a source to rebuild, repair, etc. I mentioned Afron earlier. Actually, the last two on there, the Scaladium tortuosum zembrin and Afron, actually two ingredients I take on a daily basis. Why? Because they really do help me kind of stay calm and chill. They have very unique mechanisms of action. The cool thing is they both require a really low dose. And actually nothing I listed in this category would actually trigger drowsiness. That's the focus here. There are ingredients in our market that will actually decrease stress, but at the same time, they may cause drowsiness. I left them out of this, and all of these ingredients, I left out the trade name. with regards to there's Holixer for Holy Basil. That's the one that actually does that clinical research. And suntheanine is by far the leader in research when it comes to L-theanine. The reason I list the brands when I can or mention them is those are the ones that are primarily have done the research. And just because you're getting ashwagandha root doesn't necessarily mean it's been prepared in the proper way or that it's been sourced properly, et cetera. Or same thing with saffron. You pick any one of these botanicals, especially, or in the case of suntheanine, they're the ones that I think they have 150 to 200 clinical studies. You want to make sure you're sourcing your ingredients from the brands that actually done the clinical research. I can't drive that point home enough. Sleep, I divided into botanicals and non-botanicals. The Herbal Pharmacist, if you're from outside the US, it's Herbal Pharmacist. And so I like herbs. In this case, passion flower and valerian are going to probably drive you more into that REM sleep. They're going to make you fall asleep quicker. So that's decreasing phase 1 and maybe increasing phase 4. But not necessarily as supportive for that restorative sleep when your body's actually doing repair. That's where things like afron-mazonol fall into this category. And then non-botanicals, I kind of already talked about. 5-HTP is actually responsible for helping drive the process to production of serotonin, which is the chill, relax thing. GABA, I mentioned earlier generically, but pharma-GABA is really the one that has the research on that ingredient for sleep and actually stress. I mentioned magnesium earlier, suntheanine again. You notice here there's some crossover. Some of the ingredients are being mentioned in multiple areas, and that is because usually when you help stress, you help sleep, and sometimes when you help sleep, you actually help stress at the same time. Some of these are also dose dependent, meaning you take a higher dose for one thing, and you take a lower dose for the other. That can be said for a good portion of these. And then levagen. Levagen is an interesting ingredient in that, granted, they have studies on sleep. And the reason I'm pointing out levagen or levagen plus here is that I find it interesting because they also have really killer studies with regards to reduction of pain, joint health, et cetera. And I'm a firm believer in that the number one reason I think that people really have trouble sleeping is they have some sort of pain or discomfort at night. So I think you kind of get a 2-for-1 special there. And don't forget, you can combine these things, like these each have different mechanisms of action. I'll get into that in my last slide. So next up, cognition. We've got some really cool ingredients here. Bacopa is probably one of the more popular categories. We see a couple of trademarked ingredients there. What I do want to point out are about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I learned about New Level. New Level, the original studies were actually done with e-gamers and showing how they improves their ability to concentrate, focus, reaction times, etc. All the things we kind of want in our work life, like I do, right? But it's kind of funny because part of I feel like the mechanism of action is the way the components are. It has this nutritional component to it with inositol, but it also has this ability to help improve blood flow by increasing nitric oxide production. And then you get ingredients like Cognigrade, which are providing some of that ROS, the reduction of oxidative stress. But you also have this improved blood flow as well. So you get, there's a lot of these botanicals here. You can get like a 2-for-1 special on. I mentioned sage earlier. We see, in this case, we see with like Cogniva having this effect to probably based on the way sage works. I don't know if they've done specific research, but it has a way to inhibit acetylcholinesterase. It's an inhibitor of that. So by doing that, you're going to get more acetylcholine at the nerve ending. You remember earlier when I talked about the neurotransmitters. If you don't, rewatch this and go to that slide, you'll get what I'm talking about. So let's talk about thinking outside the box. Used to be my last slide called Formulating for Success. 1, pick your target audience, stress, sleep, cognition. I think that one's kind of obvious, right? But then research the ingredients and their mechanisms of action, looking for things that maybe have multiple mechanisms that cross over energy, neurotransmitter, neuroproductive, regeneration, blood flow, brain waves, etc., and try to mix and match. Like I just gave you a really good example on the last 2 slides when I was talking about stress, sleep, well, actually last 3 slides. And then combine multiple ingredients with different mechanisms of action. So today, I decided to pick cognition. It's fresh in our minds. It was the last slide we did. So in this case, let's look for something that supports neurotransmitters. Let's look for something that supports healthy blood flow. And let's talk about something that's actually neuroprotective. In this case, I picked out of my listings, I picked Sage Cogniva because of what I just talked about, like, a minute and a half ago. Picking New Level. New Level, not just because of the improved blood flow, but I like that inositol as part of that for the nutritional component. And then I mentioned earlier with the red grape, Cognigrape. Again, improved blood flow, neuroprotective. It has that amazing ability to decrease that oxidative stress. And then last but not least, don't forget to get creative if you can. Consumers really do have pill fatigue. Try to create things that fit into everyday lifestyle. Knowing who your audience is also a really important thing, because boomers like me, we're more likely to be tablets and capsules, whereas a Gen Z, etc., is probably more likely to want to have a gummy or a stick pack or a beverage they can consume on a regular basis. And I'm going to turn this back to Sonia. Again, if you have any positive feedback, email me. You've got other ingredients you think I should learn about. I encourage you to let me know, but just don't curse me out for not including your ingredient in my talk. Sonia, it's all you.
Thanks, David. That was a mouthful. No brain fog and good filters. I just
Yeah, I don't know what I actually don't know what's better. The fact that my filter worked. Well, I think because I love my relationship with Informa, supply side network, all that the filter is probably better than my cognition staying with me. So yeah.
So we did get a question that came in by Richard DeBanks. This is one of those things that I told you, David, that I'm an English major, but I see words that I don't necessarily know how to pronounce them. So Richard, I apologize in advance. He asked, any thoughts on kratom or mitragynine as in combination with something like caffeine as a nootropic?
Yeah, so you got close. It's kratom. At this point, I'm not necessarily a fan of it, which is going to make a lot of people gasp. But whatever. So yeah, I feel like based on their unique kratom definitely has some sort of nootropic effect. What exactly that is, I feel like we still need more science on what's going on there and getting dosing and some sort of standardization process and consistency. I'm not a huge fan of combining anything with a drug, to be honest with you. So you said caffeine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, you lost me at caffeine. You had me at hello, and then you lost me at caffeine, because caffeine to me, it's a drug. If you're doing like caffeine, yeah. But there are other natural botanicals like yerba mate or something like that, where you can even, if you wanted to go green tea, even I'm a little bit more lenient on that. But it's a great concept. I like the concept of it. I would call that an Elvis. And you want to know why, Sonia? Because you're combining an upper and downer, man. That's an Elvis right there. So
one more question for you, David.
Yeah, bring it.
When you talk about the three primary areas of focus, so you said stress, sleep, cognition, are there ingredients that are good for one area, stress, for example, that may negatively affect another area like cognition?
Yeah, so I'll flip it on you. So yeah, the answer is yes across all three categories. So like if you were using something like a passion flower, valerian, whatever, that's going to kick your butt. So you're going to be a little groggy in the morning. You may have a little trouble getting your thoughts together. And I could go the other direction and say, like, there's some of the things that are used in the cognitive space that are kind of stimulating. And so there's one that I tried. It was a mango leaf extract. And it was great for cognition, and it's non-caffeine, but it made me nervous and jittery, and it actually made me anxious feeling. So, the things can definitely go, tip the scale the wrong direction to the point where somebody feels uncomfortable. And then that's when you end up playing Elvis. Think how many people like drink a crap ton of coffee in the morning, right? And by the time they're going to bed, they're wired like a cat on a hot tin roof. And I haven't used that one in a long time. But and then you gotta drink alcohol to bring yourself down, or fire up an illegal substance, or take a sleep sedative thing, or whatever. So yeah, that goes that way all the time.
I think that's all the time that we have. We don't have another health condition corner slated on the books, folks, but please let us know if there's a topic or topics that you'd like David to cover in future episodes. Many thanks for everyone tuning in. And David, thank you again for sharing your expertise.
Thanks for hosting, Sonia. Awesome. Awesome.
Here, everyone.
Peace.
Bye-bye.